Good morning, sports fans. It's been a while since I've made one of these videos. This is your host, Steve, or Desk-Bound Aviator, as I'm better known. We're sitting here on the tarmac at KLGB, Long Beach, California, looking at the ToLiss Airbus A319, 319. Which is a really nifty airplane. I did a video of this once before, but it was quite a while ago, and I thought I would do one today because a friend of mine is considering purchasing this airplane. I think he actually already did, and I thought it'd be handy and useful for him to see me handle this thing. I'm not sure about that, but we'll give it a try. In any case, it's fun to fly, and it's got a lot of details to it. It's a so-called study aircraft, whatever that means. I know what it means, but they exaggerate it a little bit, I think. But it's got some nice features, so let's get into it. The first thing we need to do is show you the ToLiss Interactive Simulation Control System, which is a fancy name for the control panel. The application control panel, and it has lots of preferences and settings that you can customize and you can do. The one that we're most interested right at this point is actually ground services, because we want to make sure that external power is in the on position, which it is because it's a 1 instead of a 0. While we're here, we can go ahead and open some doors. They're set for auto, but I've found that they sometimes work and sometimes don't, so I go ahead and I just open them manually. So this is the passenger door leading to the gate, and we'll open up, let's open up the back door because we're going to have a truck delivering a catering truck. I forget what they call that. Catering, I guess it is, truck. So let's open up the back door, and then we can open up the cargo areas. Actually, they're already open. They're already open by default. So that's done. We can now make this go away, and we can call up our handy JAR ground handling control panel. I have a key set up to do this. So there's our catering truck. And we can bring up a couple of baggage loaders and fuel truck. And why don't we even show the generator? Even though the ground power is supposed to be on, I don't see any generator hooked up to the aircraft, so we'll have JAR do it. Okay, so we'll drive those up, and now we can put that screen away. And you can see now they're parked out in the back, and pretty soon you'll see some action as they drive up to the aircraft. We can check inside and see that our inner door is open, and there's the gate leading outside. This gray area thing here, you see, that's actually the aircraft door. Okay, so we'll go inside up here, and we see we've got external power is on. We'll go ahead and turn that on, and that reveals that the batteries right now are turned off, so we'll turn those on. We can turn on a beacon light and maybe the nav and logo lights to let people know we're aboard and functioning. Turn on the serial compass, the dome light, that one doesn't function. The emergency exit lights between the aisles, we'll turn those, or we'll arm those. And then we can come up here to the ADIRs and rotate these guys to the nav position. And I'm not sure it functions, but I always rotate that to STS and then this to 1. The ADIRs take quite a while to load up, 8 minutes. There may be a preference on that. I have to look into that and see if there is a preference to speed that up. I think there is, but I don't want to take your time to do that right now. So we'll let them load up in their 8-minute period. Having done all of that, we can come down here and turn on some panel lights. To do that, you have to roll your mouse along these dials, and they have to do 2 or 3 rolls to get it to work. I don't think that one functions. We can put that on bright, and then we can come over here to the other side and do the same thing. do the small one here. And this guy like so. Now we can go down below, and the last lights are here for the upper ND and the lower ND. Navigation displays. Now we can tap on this bright and dim on the FMCs and brighten those up. And while we're at it, we can take a look down here. We can turn on the radios. I'm not sure they actually function. They would function as radios. I've tried using the ILS buttons, and I don't really see any change in that. You set the ILS frequency in the FMC, so we'll set these guys over here to auto. Leave the other switches in the default position. That can go 1 or 2. We'll leave it on. Leave it on 1 for system. And we'll put this one on auto. Okay, we'll come over here and we can rotate this guy to TA only, so we can communicate with the tower as we taxi. There's a floodlight. We can brighten that up. I'm not sure if they do very much, but we'll do it anyway. That takes care of all the lights and stuff. Now we can go back up here and zoom in just a little bit. And I have a key set up to pop up our FMC screens. And I do both of them. First is the captain's screen. The second is the first officer's screen, and or FMC. And you'll see why we do both of them in a minute. First thing I'm going to do is drag this guy down here so he's in a comfortable position for viewing later on. Okay. From here we can go to the init page, the initialization page. And I'm going to do this route from KLGB to KSFO, so we want to just dial that in. I'll walk you through the process because some of you folks may not be too familiar with the Airbus FMC and how it operates. So the first thing on the ToLiss, what you can do is put your cursor anywhere within the screen, like I have right here, and that allows you to type in whatever you're going to enter. So KLGB/KSFO, and we enter that in right key number 1. The flight number today, we'll check over here in the browser, and I have the flight from FlightAware, which is right here, that actually occurred yesterday. It's a JetBlue flight 2136. So JBU is the ICAO for JetBlue 2136. We'll enter that in that slot. Cost index is going to be 30. And our altitude, cruising altitude today is going to be 360, way up there, where it's efficient. Now, we see align IRS, and in this particular aircraft, what you need to do, and this is why you have the second FMC open, you need to open up that FMC and go to the data page. And in the data page, you want to click on GPS monitor, where you will see the GPS 2 positions, lat and long, and you want to make these positions mirrored here in this FMC. So the lat position is 3349.0, 3349.1. So again, using your keyboard, you can do it manually, but I use the keyboard. I put my mouse over that screen, and I can use the up and down arrows of the keyboard to change that number to 0. Now we come over here and we click on the right key 4, and that changes the focus to the longitude entry, and it's 118.088. We're a little high on this side, so we want to use the keys again and go in the opposite direction to 118.088. So those two are now set, and now we can align the IRS. And in short order, we'll see that indicated on the MFD. Having done that, we can make this FMC go away. We can bring this over just a little closer so you can see a little clearer. Now we go back to the, we're on the init page. We want to go to the fuel page, loading page. All right, to do this, you want to call up that ToLiss info screen again, and we go to aircraft configuration, this tab right here. Within aircraft configuration, you can set up your loading parameters, and I've got 140 passengers, almost full. Passenger distribution, maybe just slightly north of center line toward the front of the aircraft. Cargo is going to be about 4,300 or so kilos, and we'll apply these load settings. And the block fuel up to San Francisco is going to be about 6.5 thousand kilos, so we'll quick refuel with that. Then you notice here it has zero fuel weight center of gravity as 26.8%. So we come over here. Now, if I just tried to do that, I wouldn't be able to type anything for some strange reason. This is a little bug that's in this aircraft. You have to come over here. Now that I've played with this screen, to make this screen again active, the FMC, I have to just tap it with the mouse. If you tap the screen, it'll go away. You'll have to call it up again. So I just tapped anywhere on the frame of the FMC with the mouse. Now this is active, and now I can type in here 26.8. Put a slash after it, and now I'm looking for the zero fuel weight, which is 59.1 if you do it in decimals in thousands. So it's 59.1 thousand kilograms. Cursor there again, 59.1. And if you tap the right one key, it will enter that. The block fuel is 6.5 in thousands, so I'll type 6.5 and enter that here. If you entered 6500, it probably wouldn't go in. That needs to be a decimal figure. So now that's all set. From here, we can go to the flight plan, and now we can make this page go away. All right, here's our flight plan, typical Airbus layout of the flight plan page. We tap on KLGB for our departure, and we're going to be using runway 12 today, 120. Tap that, and let's see, I think our SID is going to be Hawk 3, if I'm correct, so we'll tap on Hawk 3, and you could go all the way to IK, but we're going to just limit it to going to the Hawk waypoint, so I'm not going to tap IK, I'm just going to leave it as is and hit Insert. Sometimes takes a bit. Now, I did this flight yesterday just for practice, and I noticed that it inserted manual here. I'm going to go ahead and take that out because that's not really necessary. So that leads us from the airport up to Pigeon and then to Hawk. From Hawk, we have to refer to, let's see here. I want to make this. All right, let's just refresh that page, make that go away. So here's our route, Hawk 3 to Hawk, and then the first waypoint is VTU, Ventura. So we'll come in here, and after Hawk, we'll curse down just a little bit. There's another discontinuity, so we'll type in VTU and replace that discontinuity with VTU. Now that is the transition to an airway 257, which goes to RZS. I forget what that stands for. So we'll tap on the left side of that and go to the airways. And it's 257 to RZS. V257. Enter that on the left side. Whoops, let's try that again. V257. I probably did that wrong. All right, let's check that again. Yeah. Oh, T257. My bad. Excuse me. T257. So if you don't enter the right one, it'll spit it back at you to RZS. Oh, come on. Gotta put the cursor there. RZS. Done. From there, we're doing a direct to stoked, STOKD. So we'll have to go back to our flight plan for that. We curse down to RZS. There's another discon. And we'll type in STOKD and enter it in place of the discount or above it. From stoked, we're going to surfer, which is the transition to our star. So SERFR. Put that there. And now we can go to our arrival at KSFO. Tap the arrivals key. We're going to be landing on my favorite runway, 28 left, ILS. And the star we're going to be using is way down the list. Surfer 3. We'll be using Eddie as the transition to that. And we'll insert that. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Now we had this discontinuity at the beginning, and because there's not a great distance between the runway and the pigeon, we should be able to just clear that out without any intermediate waypoints. And it does. All right, we'll curse down a little bit more. See if there's any other discontinuities. And I do not see any. Looks pretty good. Now you could rotate your dial here and go to plan mode, and then you would be able to see that route as you step through using the arrows here. You'd be able to see it would center on the waypoint that you're looking at. We'll go ahead and leave that back on ARC mode. All right, we can then go to the performance page. Now, the performance page on the Airbus is a little different than Boeing's, as you can imagine. And in the ToLiss, it's different even yet. So what we need to do with the ToLiss is call up this control system panel again. And now you see a different display over on this side of the panel in the aircraft configurations thing. The first thing we need to do is select our flap configuration. And you do that here by tapping that pop down. And I'm going to select flaps 2. That gives us our V speeds. And in this aircraft, you need to enter those manually. They're not done automatically. So V1 is going to be 150. We'll come back over here, and again, we have to tap that frame. And 150 goes in there for V1, 150 again for V2, and 153 is our the VR speed, and 153 is our V2 speed. Or rotate. Or maybe, I guess the rotate is V1 actually, to be accurate. Okay, now you notice here CGTHS, center of gravity, is 28.2, and we've got flaps indicated here, so the the THS, I forget what that means. I've got to look that up. But the THS is the other side of this slash. It's up 0.6. It's actually your trim, but I forget what THS stands for. So what we want to do, though, first of all, is enter the flaps, which is 2, and then put a slash after it. And then enter your flap or your trim setting, and you want to enter it exactly as it's written there. So you type UP.06. Flex temp. Flex temp is going to be 54 degrees. Enter that there. And that's done. Now we can go to the radio navigation page. and take a look at our approach plate for runway 28 left ILS, we'll see that our locator frequency is going to be 109.55, and the approach course is 284. 109.55, 284. So we'll enter 109.55 in that slot right there, which changes. And then 284 is our approach course, and we enter that there. Don't enter it here or it won't work. It doesn't enter anything in that slot. This is the only one that's active, the upper one. So we're set. We can leave this on, well, actually, we can go back to the flight plan page, and I'll show you something else that's unique to ToLiss as far as I can tell. In the procedures for this aircraft, what you need to do is establish your wind directions and during ascent and descent. For doing it in ascent, the ascent stage of the flight, you go to the first waypoint after your departure. The departure is KLGB runway 12, and so your first waypoint after that is going to be Pigeon, and you go to the right side of that entry and tap that. That gives you access to wind data, and within wind data you tap that, and now you see wind request with an asterisk next to it. That asterisk is your clue that you can tap that and you'll get data that you will need to enter into the FMC. The data you need to enter is the direction and the speed of the wind at altitude. And so you're going to copy 080, put a slash, and 3. You don't need the zeros in this case. So you go to the next phase and enter it right here. And it does so. And now if you tap the return key twice, you'll be back here at your flight plan. So that's the procedure for setting that up. Having done all of that, we can make the FMC go away. We can check our baro here at KLGB. And it looks like it's going to be LGB 2991. So we'll just rotate this guy a bit, 2991. And that's pretty close to it. We can set our altitude for the flight. It's going to be 36,000 cruising altitude. I'll go ahead and set that now. Some pilots like to set an interim altitude for takeoff, which is fine. You can do it that way if you prefer. I always just set the cruising altitude so that that chore is done. Now we'll come up to the upper panel again, and we need to switch over from ground power over to APU power. So the first thing I'll do is tell our passengers to sit down and buckle their seatbelts and get ready for the flight and make sure their bags are all set. Unlike the Zibo, there's no announcements that you can play with in this aircraft. There are a couple of announcements that occur, and I'll talk about those, but Zibo is much more robust in terms of recordings that you can play and simulate that aspect of the flight. This model doesn't have all of that. But we can go ahead and turn on the APU, start that up. In order to do that, we should provide it some fuel, so I'll go ahead and turn on all of the fuel pumps. Only one would be required for the APU, maybe pump number 1 here, but just to make things easy, I'll do all of them. I think I'll go ahead and turn on this radio here, even though it's not really connected to anything that I know of. If you hear some sound emanating from the cockpit, sounds like fans and so forth, and you see this square here, that's a switch. And because you don't see anything written in it, that indicates it's on or active. So you can turn that cabin fan off and quiet things down just a little bit for this stage of the process, if you like. I could have done that earlier. The packs are all on by default. In the Airbus, you don't need to do anything with packs. It's all done automatically. for takeoff and prep and everything else. Okay, having done all of that, let's take a look and see how our APU is doing. It says APU is available, which is nice. So the first thing we can do is close the cabin doors by opening up our control panel and going to ground services. And before I do that, actually, I'm going to come up here. Since our APU is up and running, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to turn on the APU bleed, and I'll turn the external power off. You see it blink when it switches over from one power system to the other. Now I will bring up this panel and we can go ahead and turn off the external power switch, and we can close the cargo doors should close automatically. We will close the entryway door, and that's auto, and we'll go ahead and close the back door. And now we can call up our handy little jar panel here and tell everybody to drive away. So let's go outside and see that operation. Yeah, you can see that the doors here have closed, the hatch doors, and now they're backing away. And I have found when I do this with the jar panel, for some strange reason, the generator doesn't seem to want to drive away with everything else. It's possible it would maybe after the catering truck. Let's just try and see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is call up our handy little pusher. And he wants to know where we're going. We're going to go in that direction, so I'll hit enter.
All right, Captain, got the directions. Let me know through the menu when you're ready.
And I'll give him a signal that we're ready.
Great news, Captain. Your tow's coming.
All right, there goes the catering truck. So it looks like we still have our generator loaded, doesn't it? Now, in order to get rid of that, and also to get rid of these vehicles that are parking behind us here, I'm going to call up the jar panel again and click on Hide All. And when I do that, bing, everything disappears. I'm not crazy about that little feature of the jar panel, but that's the way they chose to do it, so be it. And here's our pusher. So he's going to do his little operation down there and get us locked into the front gear locked into his clippers.
All right,
there.
Looks like the doors and hatches are closed and we're ready to connect.
Yep. All right, we'll get ready here. So everything's set up here. No lights necessary at the moment. What we'll be doing next, as soon as he releases the brakes, let's go outside here. Take a look at this. So there we go, we get raised up.
Welcome aboard, Captain. Tow's connected, bypass pins inserted. Go ahead and kill the parking brake when you're ready to go.
And when we do that, the auto gate backs away.
Here comes the pushback. Light them up.
Okay, and to light them up, I'm going to go down here to the lower part of our center panel. I'm going to rotate the mode switch to start, and I'll start with engine number 2. Now what we're looking for here is the big N2 fan in the center of the engine, or the front of the engine, I should say. That's going to be getting going, and that is now being fueled by the APU. Once that reaches 25% or so, we can go down and switch on number 1 engine. And when they're both running and active, we can turn the APU off because the engines will be feeding fuel to themselves. Here goes number 2, or number 1 rather. Number 2 is now ramping up nicely. All right, come back down here and rotate this switch over to normal mode again. And while we're down here, I'm going to go ahead and arm the ground spoilers. All right, APU is still on. Engines are pretty close to being fully on. And we are pretty close to being backed up properly. So we'll come up here. And now that we see that light blink, that's probably a good indication that we're over onto engine power. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the APU off. And that will spool itself down.
Just about done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
Which I just did.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
Okay, while he does that, I'm going to turn on our probe heat. We'll wait until we're in flight to see if we need anti-ice, if we go through any clouds or anything like that. For the time being, I don't think we're going to need that. We're going to be taxiing, but I don't want to blind our poor pusher fella here. What I will do, though, is come down here and activate the flaps. And go 2 notches of flaps per our FMC setting. You'll see it's got an interesting way of displaying that. Curious.
And we're disconnected. Signaling pin on the right. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
All right, it's about ready to back away. We're about ready to taxi out to runway 12, which I will do, and I will bring you back shortly as we approach that runway. Let's first, we've got our flaps down, let's first get our lights on. 1 notch up to taxi. And we'll release the park brakes and give ourselves a little bit of thrust. And be on our way. I'll see you shortly. Okay, here we are on the apron of runway 12. So we'll turn on some lights. Ready for takeoff. APU's off, probe heat's on. Everything else looks good. We'll come down here and turn on the transponder over to TARA. So we have our transponder working. And we'll take a look back up here. Let's just take a look and see if anybody in our immediate vicinity. That looks good. Nothing there, nobody coming in. ATC has given us the go-ahead, so we'll taxi on out, and then we'll go through the takeoff procedure. But before I do that, I noticed here on our lower panel, we've got some indications of checks that we have to do. The first is to set the auto brakes to max. I could have done that before I taxied. Cabin check. In order to clear that, what you need to do is a little ToLiss thing is just come up here and tap any one of these call buttons. And you'll hear that, and now that's cleared. Spoilers are indicated that you need to arm them. So once again, I'll click on armed. All right, we're ready to roll here. Zoom out, look around, and proceed. Turn off the park brake. And we can just do a rolling start since everything's all set. One thing I have noticed is that my yoke lever for steering, I have a lever set to function much like a steering tiller on a jet. And it's strangely not responsive in the center. It responds very quickly in the extremities, but not in the center. It takes me sometimes a little bit to get the steering to do what I want it to do. All right, we're on the center line. I'm slowly increasing our throttle up to the full toga position, which you see indicated on the PFD. And you should shortly hear an annunciator indicate that we're reaching V1, V2, and V3 speeds, ready to rotate.
V1, rotate.
And off we go. Gear up.
Positive rate, gear up.
And I'm just going to do a nice slow controlled bank. Go ahead and turn off the landing and side lights. Get those back down. And now we're getting an indication on the PFD to retard the throttle a little bit back to flight climb mode. We can go ahead and bring in the flaps 1 notch, and when we reach 200, bring them in 2 notches. And I'll go ahead and turn on autopilot. That will help us control our speeds and keep ourselves within the speed zone. Right now we're a little bit above it, but that's because we were descending just a little bit. Now autopilot is taking care of that. I'll go ahead and release the, or disarm the spoilers. And it's indicating our strobe light is off, so let's go ahead and turn that up to on. I guess they were off. My bad on that. All right, so we're coming around heading toward our route line. And in order to see these instruments clearly, I'm going to go ahead and pop them, which is one of the nice features of the ToLiss. It has a really nice pop-up display. You can do any of these screens by just tapping it, and then if you like, you can move them. So you can just fly like that if you like, then if you want them to go away, just tap them again. Very handy. So you can see we're coming around here, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you can get closer to where we are. You see that's actually, the route is actually indicated as an arc or a circle, and we are following it quite nicely. Speed's hanging in there right there at 250 until we reach 10,000. All handled by the autopilot. Now, what this demonstrates to you, among other things, about the ToLiss, as opposed to the JAR A320 and A330, my experience of those aircraft is that sometimes that activity functions perfectly fine, and other times, particularly in situations as tight as this, it doesn't work at all. If you turn on autopilot, it immediately bombs out on you, and it can be quite difficult in those aircraft to get the autopilot to function reliably. And I find myself turning it on, turning it off, and when it goes off, you have to manually fly the aircraft and get yourself back into an absolutely pristine position, laterally and vertically, before the autopilot will re-engage itself. It's not very forgiving, and I attribute that to JAR, not to Airbus. In the ToLiss, it's quite different. In ToLiss, the Airbus is quite forgiving and operates pretty flawlessly, as I can tell, as you can see from this. So we're now approaching our 10,000 foot level, and when we do so, I'll go ahead and lower retract the landing lights. And so we're all set. We don't need to switch the auto brakes off. That's done automatically. Another Airbus feature, a lot of features on the Airbus as opposed to Boeing's are done automatically by the aircraft. My friend was asking me about that because we were discussing the inherent differences between the two systems. And the Airbus, by design, when they developed the Airbus, they assessed the situation in the world of aircraft, of commercial flight, and they realized that where the world is going is automation. And so the Airbus was developed with a lot of systems designed to operate automatically without pilot intervention. Boeing's philosophy has always been to allow the pilot to be the ultimate authority of the aircraft. And indeed, in Airbuses, they are also. But Boeing puts a little more reliance on the pilot to figure things out than Airbus does. Airbus is much more attuned to allowing the systems to handle the aircraft with minimal input from the crew. Crew just is there to monitor the situation, and in the event of anything going wrong, they can intervene and they can fly the aircraft. But it's a little different philosophy, and as a result, some of the ways in which the Airbus systems work is a little different than Boeing's. They both get you there. All right, we're now passing 18,000, so we'll go ahead and tap on the baro button. Put ourselves over into standard barometric pressure mode as we continue our climb to 36,000 and on our way to San Francisco. I'll make these two screens disappear. I want to just bring up the FMC again and show you something within that. If I go to progress, you will see on the progress page on line L2, the second line down the left-hand side, you see report. If you click on report, that brings up a page that shows you various interesting aspects of where the aircraft is on the flight right now, wind speeds and so forth. And down here you'll see a line that says TD, that's top of descent. And the UTC is the time that we expect to arrive at TD, and the distance is 182 nautical miles. So we want to keep track of that figure, and as it decreases and gets down into the range of about 60 nautical miles, we then want to go ahead and set our descent target altitude. And there's also a procedure that we want to follow regarding descent winds, and I'll show you that as we reach that point. The other thing we can do is go to the performance page, and since this isn't that long a flight, we can probably go ahead and do this here. This is familiar to those of you on other Airbuses. You go to the performance page and you click next phase again until you reach the approach page. And on the approach page, in the ToLiss, what they call for is to open up the control window again. And now within aircraft configuration, once again, you see a different body of information here. And the ToLiss is giving you information such as the barometric pressure at KSFO, the temperature, and also wind speed and direction. I think there's a bug in this because I've been finding that the wind speeds are really wacko. 299 knots at 23, or rather, I'm sorry, this would be direction, wind 299 at 23. So let's just verify that. I'll show you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to just drag these two guys to the right a little bit. And I'm going to call up my handy METAR. I got to get the cursor out of there. Call up my METAR request window. This is a plugin I have, which you can see here. It's called XPNOAA Weather. Oh, by the way, while I'm at that, I want to also discuss, when we took off, you heard an annunciator call out the V speeds. That's not ToLiss doing that. That's a Fly with Lua script that I have loaded and downloaded, and I can provide the link for that if you're interested. One of the things that ToLiss didn't do was provide an annunciator to call out V speeds on takeoff. There is a plugin. It does require the Lua script device in their plugins. So if you're not familiar with that, you need to read up on Fly with Lua. But you just put it in, you put that script within the scripts folder, and you now have an annunciator that calls out your V speeds. So back to the weather, I'm going to type in KSFO, hit enter. That gives us the actual NOAA readout. And the first thing I see is, let's see, 2997, so that's different. 28, they say it's 19, and 180 at 3. That's much different wind that we see here. So I'm going to take NOAA's word for it rather than ToLiss's word for it, and I'm going to use that information. So the first thing I need is the QNH, which is 2997. I'm going to type that in, or I'll put my cursor over here and see if it works. Yep, 29.97. And that goes in the QNH slot. Temperature is 19. Whoops, 19, do it again. There you go. Got to have that cursor in that window. And the air is 180 degrees at 3 knots. 180/3. That may change as we get closer. We'll keep an eye on that. But for right now, that gives us, sets up the FMC for our descent properly, and gives us a VLS speed of 136. That's your threshold speed as you land. You want to have that as your target. And as you know, when there's a headwind of any sort, even a side wind, you can modify that and add a couple of knots of speed to compensate for that wind condition. Make that go away, and then go back to progress and see where we're at in terms of the top descent. And we got down to 142. Now, when we reach about 60 knots, or maybe sometimes down to about 30 nautical miles from top descent, we're going to be doing a procedure. Again, this is a ToLiss procedure where you go to the flight plan, you scroll down to the top of descent indication, and you keep scrolling until that is located at the top of the screen. The waypoint following that point, just as you did on takeoff, the waypoint following the takeoff point. Well, the waypoint following the top descent point, you want to right-click that, and again you see wind data. You click on the wind data, and again you're going to see wind request, but you don't see an asterisk, and the reason is because we're too far away at this point in the flight. So you're going to need to wait until you see that asterisk pop up there, and then you go to phase again, and you'll copy. You don't even need to copy anything. It just automatically enters it into the FMC. But you need to go through this procedure in order to get that descent wind entered into the FMC properly. So that's that procedure, and we will come back to that as we get closer. I'll make that go away. So here we are over lovely Southern California. Do a little tour around our aircraft. take a look at the view on the way. That's Catalina Island out there. So we're close to the end of the wings, chopping top. Zoom back just a little bit. Oops. There we go. Oh, too fast. All right, on key, there we go. We control key down to make it nice and slow. So what you're looking at here is the terrific orthophoto scenery that is done by a gentleman who goes by the name of Fork Boy 2, and recently updated a number of the states. I don't think California was updated, but it's always been terrific. You definitely will not see mountains like these in X-plane scenery if you're just looking at that. I recently did a flight from the Salt Lake area to LA, crossing the most spectacular western scenery imaginable, and boy, the resolution and the detail of Fort Boy's orthophoto files is just amazing. It takes you a lot of space to download them and a lot of time, but you know, it's well worth it, as you can see. There's a nice view looking down on Route 35, one of the most spectacular drives in the whole Bay Area, if not all of California. Goes right along the ridge line all the way from the San Jose, Santa Clara Highway up to San Francisco, or just south of San Francisco. And from there you can go down to Moss Beach or over to the airport, Santa Clara, in that area. There are side roads that lead off of this down into the various communities in the Bay Area. I've driven that road many times, and it's beautiful. And there you're looking at an open pit mine that very few people really know about or even see. It's been there for many years, just north of Palo Alto, or actually just west, I guess it is, of Palo Alto. I'm not sure what they mine there, but it's a very interesting open scar in an otherwise spectacular landscape. I don't even know how they got away with doing it in California, of all places. And right over here, the golden fields of above Stanford University. This is Route 280, winding its way up the upper side of the valley. This is where all the rich folks live, up in Haywood, or not Haywood, but oh, I forget the name of the communities. But a lot of very wealthy people live. The higher you live, every 10 feet is another $1 million to the value of your house. There's a spectacular site here up in these beautiful fields above Stanford. Is the Stanford Linear Accelerator, and it might be up there or here. It is a mile-long building in which they fire off protons to study the behavior of atoms, of protons when they collide and stuff like that. Atomic research. It's still there, it's still functioning. It's been there for many years. The Route 380 goes, or 280 goes right over it. Very interesting area. I think that's probably it right up there, that white line you see. Slack, they call it. Okay, we're getting close here to Henman. I think it's Henman, isn't it? Let's see. Heeman, not Henman. Henman's a tennis player. As we approach Palo Alto. I'm going to try to invoke some flaps here and see what we can do. It may not like it, but let's give it a try. Nope, didn't like it. Okay. But it should reduce speed pretty quickly here as we get down around 4,000. We're approaching our target, and it'll create a new target. Bring these screens up so you can see them. The target altitude is displayed on the altitude tape with a line around it, and as you reach it, it creates a new one and posts it down here below the tape. And we have a target speed of 152 right now, and I see that our speed tape is beginning to descend. And I think maybe what we need to do is let's see how far that goes. And now we start to descend a little further. Now at do yet, we should be acquiring our locator and glide slope. So I'm going to go ahead and arm that system by hitting the LS button over here. And when we are in line with the runway there, I will then go ahead and tap on the approach button over here. And so you see we've already acquired the locator. Glide slope is armed and ready for acquisition. And when it does so, it will replace that with GS, as you see, which it has done.
2,500.
And I suppose when we get by do yet, we'll go ahead and drop gear. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and that'll assist us in slowing down. I learned that technique from my pilot in Italy recently, where I was flying on an Alitalia flight, and they used the gear to slow down the aircraft. Very effective technique if you can get away with that. So now we're down to 200. And we can drop our flaps again to number 2 spot. Getting close here, so we can go ahead and let's turn on the runway turn-off lights. And there's our flap 3 spot. Copy lights look good.
28.
100 above. 300.
Just gonna take over manual control of the throttle, get our speed down just a little bit.
Minimum.
Too low, flaps.
200.
Too low, flaps.
Yep. Last notch of
Too
flaps.
low, flaps.
100.
Looking good.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10. 5.
here. And let's turn off here. Just that little light plug. I'm not sure what that's doing in there anyhow. Okay, I'm going to pull ourselves into this gate right here. Not sure if this is B7. Doesn't look like it, but we'll pretend it is. His flashlights cross. We need to slam on the park brake. Right there. Okay, so we can got our APU bleed on. So we can let people get out of their seats first of all. Turn off the taxi lights. The emergency lights can come off. Everything else can stay the same as it is for the moment. What I'll do is come down here. First of all, I'll open up our door. Door 1, we can open that. Go ahead and let the cargo doors open by themselves. So let's get rid of that, and then let's come down here to the center console and shut off the engines by clicking right about there and there. And if we take a look, there we go. You can see our auto gate coming up. And that's about it, folks. That's the ToLiss Airbus A319. Nice little aircraft. And I use the term little on purpose because one of the nice things about this aircraft is it's not so big that you have to fly it to Tokyo just to operate it. You can fly it, on short hops just about anywhere. And it's got some interesting setup and operational procedures. Once you get the hang of them, they start to become more routine. Using that interactive control panel is one of the features of this jet. And there's lots of things I'm sure that I haven't even gotten into yet that are built into it that you can explore and study. One thought is that when you acquire this aircraft, it only comes, I think, with one livery or maybe two, including the default ToLiss livery. But there are hundreds of liveries available online on the .org site. All you need to do is Google ToLiss liveries, and you'll get that page, and you can download JetBlue if you like, or a whole flock of other ones that are very nice, well executed. The detailing on this aircraft is, I think, first rate, with one possible exception. If you take a look at the nose, I don't know quite what they had in mind here, but it looks like that thing's about ready to fall off on the radome on the nose. But in every other regard, the gear down below, it's all first rate, good stuff. So I don't think you can fault this airplane too much. And it flies beautifully, and it handles so well. And the bloody autopilot doesn't go making loud noises at you all the time the way the jar does. I think the jar is terrific too, but I do think it has some flaws. And that's one of them that bugs me all the time. So that's it for today. I appreciate you joining me on this flight, and we'll come back and do others as we find them interesting to do. Okay, have a good day. This is Steve, your desk-bound aviator. See you soon.